we kick us off, folks, I will do an acknowledgement of the traditional lands. So at Royal Roads University, our campus rests upon the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. And it is with gratitude that we live, learn, and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, staff, and faculty come together. So thank you all for joining us. And today, folks, we are here to talk about our fantastic Bachelor of Arts in Professional Communication program. My name is Ariana Konjerski. I'm an education specialist here at Royal Roads. I'm always delighted to be joined by Dr. Chaseten Remillard, who is an associate professor and the program head for the BAPC program on campus. Chase, how are you today?
I'm really well. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're also joined, of course, by our wonderful enrollment advisor, Andrea Boyes, and then Jackie Lee, the program associate from the program. So delighted to be here with all of my wonderful colleagues here today. Just to kick us off, folks, with a brief agenda, I'll give us a small overview of the Royal Roads University experience. Chase will give us some details on the wonderful program. I'll give us a little bit of details at the end on admissions and how to apply. So if you're thinking of applying, hopefully we can get some of your questions answered. And then questions. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, as I mentioned, or any comments as we move along. That would be fantastic. All right, so if you are not familiar yet with Royal Roads, I will share some data with you. This is a recent alumni survey that we conducted, I want to say last year. So we have some statistics here on the screen. So 93% of alumni from Royal Roads say that we've positively influenced their personal and professional lives. 92% say that they felt supported by staff and faculty. 90% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge required for a leadership role in the workplace. And 89% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge needed to be innovative in the workplace. So fantastic numbers there. I also want to share a little bit about our space here with you. So if you are thinking of taking an on-campus or blended kind of program, even the online program, it's nice to see some photos of our campus. We have our beautiful Hatley Castle here in the top left corner. That's been a famous movie set kind of throughout the years. So films like X-Men, Deadpool, numerous Disney films, all kinds of movies have been filmed there. We also have a lovely variety of gardens and green space. So we have just to the right of that a photo of our Japanese garden, super beautiful. We also have a migratory bird sanctuary on campus. So you'll see to the bottom left, there's a photo of our Esquimalt Lagoon there. And we've also been doing our online and blended learning styles for well over 25 years. So that is an homage in the bottom right to that as well. And we're also proud to be certified as an Ashoka U Changemaker campus, which is an innovative approach to education that prepares students as they address world problems and encourage others and act for the good of all. All right, folks, so at this point, I will pass it off to Chase, who will give us some program information.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so the BAPC, that's what we call it, the BA in Professional Communications, is a program that you can take one of two ways. It's either fully online program over 2 years, or it's a fully face-to-face program 1 year on campus here at Royal Roads. I can't advance the slides. Ariana, do you want? Oh, there you go. Thank you. So the program, like I said, has two completion pathways. Either you're on campus or you're online. And basically what we try to do is we try to give you both practice, or what the program gives you is both practice and theory. So you get both, that combination of practice and theory that allows you to be much more of a strategic communicator and a person who's going to be put in a position of leadership in organizations when they when you leave the program. And the real, I think, power of the program is that, well, there's a couple of really great things about the program in terms of coming into it from other institutions. So there's a few folks I see that are in Calgary. We have lots of students that come into our program from Calgary, but from all over the place as well. And let's say you took 2 years at SAIT and then you decided to come into our program. if you went to U of C or MRU, those 2 years wouldn't necessarily translate to directly 2 years of study. So our transfer agreement basically gives you 2 years for your studies wherever it is, and then it says you're going to do 2 years with us, either online or 1 year that's going to do both those years in an intensive way. And so it's actually like a very uh, generous offer from Royal Roads, because a lot of institutions don't offer that exact one-to-one for whatever you have. It also is that if you're a working professional, you can come in on a flex admission, which means that if you've had experience working in the field, you can come in and take the program without even having all of the credits from a post-secondary, um, another post-secondary education. So, like I said, there's 2 years on campus. That delivery starts in May. So you'll start in May, and you start with what we call like a virtual residency. So that's an opportunity for you to meet your cohort and to really kind of get a sense of who's in your cohort. That means that you do a few extra courses in that residency than you would normally do for the rest of the program. So at the beginning of the first year and at the beginning of the second year, you have these residencies where you're going to do 3 courses at once. After that, you go down to a 1 course basically at a time as you go through the program. So the the rationale for that is that if you were a working professional, you could take some of your vacation to do those 2 weeks, and then as you go through the rest of the course or rest of the program, you could be working full time, and that's a or 3/4 time or full time, depending on your comfortability. But most of our students in the online are doing a full time work, and then they're taking their degree at the same time. So that's a really good option if you're somebody who's got a good job, or maybe you're a person who has obligations, family, or personal obligations that keep you from moving out to the West Coast for a year. Then that online program is a really good option. The other thing about the online is that, I mean, both our programs are cohort, but I think it's particularly important in an online setting that you have a cohort model, which means that when you are in that cohort, everyone takes the same courses at the same time. So everyone is moving through the program at the same time with you. And what we found is that that really helps completion rates. Like, a majority of our students, Ariana, I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but I would sort of put it at probably plus 90% of our students finish with their cohort. And that's a very high completion rate. And part of that, the reason that is because you want to be there with the people who you've gone through the program with. So sometimes you might not be motivated if you are working on your own and you're just sitting there as one singular person, and you have your course that you have to do, and you don't know anyone in the room, in the course or anything like that. But because you're a cohort, you know everyone, you've had that time in residency to be able to get to know people, and you really get to bond together as a group, and you do group projects and you work through the program together. So it's a real motivation to complete, and it's also a really nice support for you as a student, and it's also a really great networking tool for you when you graduate, because everyone goes on to do really interesting things down the road, and you know that person from when you were with them in the program. On campus, it's sort of even more intense. On campus, you're with those people all the way through the different terms, and you also have a really strong bond with them, and it's a really great time because you really develop close friendships, and you have that opportunity of really gaining a lot from your colleagues. So. Um, I would say that we sort of call them 4 acts to the program. And the first one is what we call foundation. So we don't really go by term because the program is the same for if you're doing it over 2 years or whether you're doing it in 1 year. So it's hard to say that in term one, term two, you do this or that. So we're going to kind of conceptualize it as like 4 acts of a play or four chapters of a story. So that first act is what we call foundations. And basically, sort of the shorthand for the first act, which are these 5 courses, foundations of professional communication, communication theory, written communication, visual communication, research methods. These are courses that, when you go to your holiday dinner over the winter break and you have the sort of the know-it-all aunt or uncle who say, oh, you're taking communications, so what's that? You're writing things? This gives you an answer to that question that says, well, actually, communications is all of these things, and we do this sort of thing. And so it gives you a real sense of what the discipline or the field of communications is. And so the the other thing about that first act is that because people come from all kinds of different backgrounds, you might have people who are working professionals, you might have people who are more production or content creators. This sort of gives everyone a same definition of what we mean by communications. I saw a question come in. It says, if you live local and you're doing online, can you do some in person? Uh, we can kind of do some flexibility like that, but usually we don't recommend that because it kind of moves you from one cohort to the other. But there are opportunities to be able to take some variation on certain things. So I mean, we can have those conversations, and if it makes sense for you for whatever reason, then there can be maybe an accommodation that way. So that's the first 5 courses is the foundation courses. The second set of courses we call platforms. And so basically, you've kind of thought about what it means to do communications work and what does it mean to be a professional communicator. And now we start talking about, well, where, on what platforms are you communicating? So this is where we start talking about things like public persuasion, which is oral arguments or verbal arguments. We talk about digital communications. We talk about communication planning. How do you reach the right people with the right chat on the right channels? We talk about, because digital communication is such an important one, we also talk about what we call multimodal storytelling. So how do you tell a story on, visual or auditory, podcasts, these different ways of communicating. So the platforms is really an opportunity to kind of think about getting that message out to a certain group of people and having it be impactful. We then follow that with what we call like the context. So the context is important to think about whether or not you're communicating within an organization or you're communicating on behalf of that organization out to the public, whether or not you're communicating domestically or whether or not it's an international audience. These are questions that we talk about in these next set of courses. We talk about indigenous contexts. We talk about sustainability as an important part of communications and how do you kind of create a sustainable communication. How does communications facilitate things like sustainability, equity, inclusion? How do these things, ethics, how do those things get forwarded through communication practices? So you're getting a sense of all of the different places in which you might work and sort of the different ideas that you might be working with to communicate on behalf of organizations. And then the last is application, and sort of this is the last sort of 5 courses, talking about things like crisis communication. This is a really important and growing field because of things like climate change. We're getting a lot of wildfires. How do you manage crisis communication? And also the internet and social media can easily create a crisis for organizations. Somebody says something that they shouldn't say or does something and it goes viral. We also talk about interpersonal communications in different cultures. We talk about um, building a portfolio and a professional brand for you so that you can leave out from the program with a real clear sense of who you are as a communicator. And we talk about, and we give you an opportunity, the program gives you an opportunity to do what's called a field study or a practicum or professional experience in communication is on this slide. Basically, it's 75 hours that you're going to be with an organization. It could be paid, it might be paid, it might be volunteer, but you do 75 hours with an organization and you basically are working on a communication problem for them. So some of the really fun projects that people have done for organizations are people have worked for different political parties, depending on what political party you're interested in. There's elections that are coming up. I just was contacted by the Liberal Party of a candidate in Saanich, and they're looking for people who are going to make some videos and social media for the person who's running for election there. So if you're interested in being in sort of politics, we've had people work for the Green Party and the NDP. So there's always opportunities. There's also opportunities to work in certain kind of, interesting um, sectors like extreme sports. We've had people do video content and social media content for like mountain biking, and we've had people create a communications crisis plan for a local shopping mall. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can really employ your skills. And what's great about that field study is that you really get a sense of how important your degree is for organizations. And, one of the sort of like shorthand definitions that I have about what professional communications is that professional communications is using like communication tactics and strategies to um, help organizations reach their goals. So if the organization is the Red Cross and they need volunteers, then the person who's working in communication is driving volunteerism. If it's a university and it needs students, then the person in communication is driving student enrollment, right? If it's an oil and gas company and they need public buy-in because they want to build a pipeline, then they're building that community buy-in. If it's a environmental organization and it doesn't want the pipeline to go through, then it's building public pressure to not put that pipeline through. So communications is really a central role. It's a growing role in organizations. There's very few organizations now that don't have communications teams. It's also a really great space to be an entrepreneur because organizations may have communications teams, but they don't oftentimes have enough communication team. And so they will hire people to do extra contract work for them in certain things like building campaigns, building social media content, building literacy for their people inside on how to deal with crisis. These are really great opportunities for you as a contractor or as an entrepreneur. And we get students who come from all kinds of different places. Like I said, we have people coming from content, from journalism, from graphic design, from all kinds of different places. And we have people go into all kinds of different places too. They go and work for government, they work for nonprofit, they work for profit, they go into their own practice. We had somebody who graduated and then became the drone photographer for Rugby Canada as the women's as they traveled across Europe, which I mean that seems like a pretty cool gig to me, is to be doing the drone photography for the Canadian rugby's team as they travel around Europe. So it really gives you a real capacity to do what you want to do and to go where you want to go. And I'll give you a couple of other great examples of our alumni. So there's a fellow who started an organization or a company called Human Biography, and you can take a look at that. Humanbiography.com. His name is Sharad Khan. He basically is a private video biographer for celebrities. And so he's worked with people like Oprah Winfrey, Meryl Streep, like you pretty much name any A-lister person, and he's probably done some work for them. And he has his degree from us, a BA or an MA in professional communications, right? So he finished his degree, and he said he left with that confidence to be able to pursue those big contracts and those big ideas. Another one of our alumni, she's coming in tomorrow to give a talk to our students in the digital communications. She's like one of a top kind of expert in AI in Canada, and she has her BA, and her name is Rebecca Baltzma, and she left with her BA. She worked for a school district with her BA, and then all of a sudden the AI revolution showed up, and she started becoming very knowledgeable on applications of AI in all kinds of different places, and became a person who was hired by organizations to come in and train their people on how AI is going to change their organization and their communications practices. She's now doing an MA in Scotland, but she just finished traveling and talking across the states. She was in LA for a conference. So, these are just a couple of examples of the different places that people go. And if that's not something that you want to do, then there's a long list of people who are working quite happily in all kinds of different organizations. Our grads get really great jobs. Okay. Questions, I'll leave it there. But let's see if we have some questions here. Internet keeps coming. Considering applying under flexible admission for 2-year online program, are students in the program eligible to apply for master's? Yeah, you can when you have your BA, you have your BA, and whatever you want to do with that, that's up to you. So yeah, we've had people go from our BAs into MAs and then even to the PhDs. So yeah, once you have that degree, no one can take that away from you. That's the great thing about education. People might be able to fire you from a job, but they can't take your education. That's a really powerful thing about education, is that your credentials are always with you, no matter what. Let's see, there's another question here. It says, my laptop has been acting up. Is the 2-week residency in person or virtual? It's virtual. It's virtual. We made that change a year ago to make it so that people can have a better opportunity to come to the residency without the cost of traveling. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
I'll pass it over to you to run through the next set of information.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. Thanks for your questions, everybody. That's great. Feel free if you have more questions to put them in the chat like you've been doing. I'll cover some details on how to apply. I know there was a question on flexible admissions, so we'll cover that right now. Before I get to flexible admissions, I'll just cover standard admissions. So we have both of those avenues. So for this program, standard admissions looks like the completion of a diploma or 60 credits in communication, journalism, business admin, or general arts, including a minimum of 24 second-year credits with a minimum GPA of a B from a recognized post-secondary institution. We also have a variety of block transfer agreements as well. There's a slide on that just in a little bit, but you can check all that out on our website. It's just ruralroads.ca. And then if you're curious about transfer agreements from other institutions, I know Chase was mentioning that earlier, you can explore that online as well. All right, and flexible admissions. So normally, if you do not meet those requirements for standard admissions, and you have about 5 years of relevant work experience in areas like communication, public relations, journalism, or other related fields, and you have knowledge or evidence of having sufficient knowledge, skills, and abilities to complete a demanding course of study, you can also be assessed under flexible admission. So this is something that's assessed at Rural Roads on a case-by-case basis. So it's not something that you choose when you're applying. It's just different avenues to be able to come into the program if you don't meet like that one set of requirements, if that makes sense. We also have some language requirements. So at Royal Roads, English is our primary language of instruction. If your primary language is not English, you can meet our requirements in one of three ways. So if you hold a recognized credential from an English-speaking country, you can also submit an English language proficiency test score report, or you can also complete one of our Global Learning and Language Center programs as well. You'll see the link for that is on the screen. More information about all of that is online. And we have, like I mentioned, a variety of transfer agreements. So you'll see there's many institutions that you can transfer in from. So if you are attending college or any of these institutions, there are a variety that kind of feed into the BAPC program, which is fantastic. And you'll see the link for that is just on the screen. And if you're thinking of applying, just some quick steps to keep in mind. So the first thing is an online application. The fee currently is $136.69. And then we ask for some supporting documents. So things like official transcripts, your detailed resume, so going into detail about the things that you've done for work or volunteering. A personal statement as well. So if I like to describe this often as if you were applying for a job and you submit your cover letter, you're kind of telling your employer, what do you hope to get out of this job? What are you bringing to the job? It's like that, but for school. So really detailing, why do you think this is a good fit for you? What do you hope to get out of our program? What are you bringing to the program? A little bit about your work experience, things like that. 2 letters of reference, so either academic in nature or those can be professional in nature as well. And then there is those English language requirements that I mentioned before. All right, and some key dates. So if you are thinking of joining us, I just wanted to put for the online intake, there is an intake that starts on March 24th. So if you are like super excited, accommodation may be possible. Of course, we say that with an asterisk. So for March 24th, 2025, application deadline for that has obviously passed. Or if you're looking ahead into the future for the online intake, that start date is March 23rd, 2026, and the application deadline is December 23rd, 2025. For the on-campus program, if you are looking at studying on campus, the date for that is September 15th, 2025. The application deadline is a little bit sooner in June. It'll be here before we know it. So if you are thinking of applying, please do submit your documents as early as possible to give yourself as much time as you can. And just some services that are available. I also see there's some activity in the chat, so we will get back to that in just a second here. If you are curious about financial aid and awards, you can explore financial resources that are available to you. We have a whole page for that. It's wonderful. So things like loans, bursaries, scholarships, emergency funding, student research, all kinds of stuff is available. We also have our fabulous enrollment services. Thanks to Andrea. See, she's putting her advising appointment there in the chat. I'll be sure to include that in our follow-up as well. You can also email them, learn.more@royalroads.ca, and there's some phone numbers if you want to give them a call, or like I said, booking that enrollment advising appointment is fantastic. They can really help you kind of talk all these things through, narrow down your options, answer any questions that you have about your application. I know there are some questions here about kind of like one-on-one scenarios. It's great for that, and connect you with students and alumni, things like that. Okay, so that is all the slides I have for now. I'm just going to go back to the chat, see if we have any questions that we missed here. Kieran, I see you're asking, would a diploma in public admin be okay? Not 100% sure. So I would say booking an advising appointment would be the best course of action for that, just to kind of chat that through. Taylor's asking if I've already been accepted but have years of experience in journalism, would I be able to work through some experience where I might be able to omit some courses? Chase, I don't know if you want to jump in on that one.
I mean, omitting courses based on work experience is not typical. I mean, everything is obviously case by case, but if you've been admitted under flexible admission and maybe you've done a couple of courses, let's say at SAIT or something like that, then there might be an opportunity to do that. But keep in mind that when you come in with flexible admission, you've been basically given 60 credits already. So it sort of is like you've been given quite a big like about 20 courses for your work experience already. So given that, I don't think it would be likely that you would get anything for in addition to that. If, for example, though, you had maybe done a diploma or something like that, and then did another one, and you might have had two diplomas, then maybe some of the second one might be applied or something like this. Or if you'd done a diploma and then started a university program and had a couple of courses there that might have been overlapped, then maybe there might be an opportunity. But typically, if you come in from flex admission, no, you're not going to get additional to those 20 courses that you've already been granted credit for.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chase. And I see some questions have already been answered in the chat. How many hours a week is the 2-year online program? I see Chase and Andrea have answered that. That's fantastic.
I think that just to qualify is that I think a good kind of rule of thumb is that it could be, you consider it as for each credit is 33 hours, and so therefore 3 credits is 99 hours, or all of our courses are 3 credits. So you can kind of just say it's 100 hours worth of effort. And, usually they're about 10 weeks long. So, some weeks you might be a little bit more or less, or maybe you're a fast worker, but it's basically like having sort of an extra 8 to 10 hours of work a week. And that is if you're doing everything, you're doing all the readings, and you're going to the lectures and you're doing the assignments. That's everything all in. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I see, thank you, Andrea, for putting that in the chat. Just as far as relevance of different diplomas and things, it's up to our admissions team who reviews your application. That's great. Perfect. Okay. And I think that is all the questions. And like I said, folks, if you do have any more questions, I'll be sure to include all of this follow-up information. Booking a one-on-one appointment is really a wonderful thing, because then you can chat through your specific situation as well. I'll also be sure to, of course, send this recording and a follow-up. So if you want to review any of this information, yeah, so that's perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, folks. I believe we'll wrap up there. Chase, any last things to say before we conclude today?
Yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me too if you have a question about the curriculum or about the courses, or sort of student life or what have you. I can help you with that as well. Maybe just give you some advice on other things related to the curriculum and the program. I wouldn't be able to help you with the admissions side of things and all that, because that's not my expertise. But I'm always happy to hear from folks and help them make a decision or think through the different options. I think the other really, I always say this at the end, is that, if you're thinking about applying and you're kind of waiting for the best time, or you're not quite sure, out of all of the universities, I think Royal Roads has got a pretty easy application in comparison to a lot of them. It doesn't take a lot to put in an application, and we have a rolling admissions, which means basically you put in your application. I think usually within a month you get a response of whether or not you've been accepted. Then you can make a better decision. You can defer, or you can choose not to, or you can choose to go. So I would say if you're interested or you're thinking about the program, put in the application, and then you're in a much better, like, realistic space on making that decision than the hypothetical. So, yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chase. Thank you for your time today. And thank you, folks, for tuning in live. For anybody who's on the recording, thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions, please be in touch with us. But other than that, we hope we will see you in the program soon and on a webinar next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.